All right, we are live. Welcome to Kite Talks. We have a special guest all the way from Toronto, other side of the pond. We have Rishi Lal with us. Rishi is the Director of Corporate Partnerships and Business Development at the Canadian Hockey League. Rishi, really appreciate you taking the time out for us today.
No worries. Big fan of you. Big fan of Kite Talks, and really excited to join you.
Appreciate the kind words. Rishi, you're the sponsorship guy, aren't you? You're the guy people go to when the brands need to come in. Um, I spoke to you earlier about, our audience, and I don't want to jump at your experience at the CHL. We'll talk about that, but want to talk about a little bit about your first break into the industry. How did you start out? You've been in the industry almost a couple of decades. Uh, our listeners would love to know uh, maybe a couple of stories from there.
For sure. So again, thank you for having me. I did my undergrad at a place called York University, which is in Toronto, and I did political science and communications. And so I loved obviously the communication side of things, but I love politics. And so I wanted to get into the political side of things. And so the last couple of years I focused on that. And then I forayed a little bit in that during my school year. And it's the best way to put this. I realized that my moral compass was a little different than I think what was needed in politics. I'd like to try to do everything I do with integrity and try to be fully transparent. And politics does not allow for that at all times. The ability to affect change is there, but in order to get there, it's a bit of a dotted zigzaggy line to get there, where I feel like by the time your ability to affect change happens, not that you're morally bankrupt, but you've changed. And so I think maybe that's just me, because there are some wonderful leaders, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, a lot of people who do wonderful things and are uncompromising men and women, but I just realized that was not a path that I could undertake. And so I looked at what I really wanted to do and what I really got excited about, and would make me run to work and then run home to see my family. And it was sports, and I'm so passionate about sports, and so I need to figure out a way to break in. And so I tried to marry my passion for communications and writing with sports. And so after my time at York, I did a postgraduate program at Humber College here, and learned to write a little bit, and then wanted to get in the broadcasting side. And so I was fortunate enough.
That was a postgraduate degree in journalism, right?
In journalism, correct. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And so after journalism, I was a 2-year program. And the first year I applied, there's a TV network here called TSN, at the time was the premier sports network. And I applied for the internship my first year, didn't get in, but told, hey, we only accept 5 kids a year. You're at the top of the list. Applied during your last year. We'll get you into an internship. There's a small stipend associated with it. And you work for them for 6 months, which potentially could turn into a full-time job. And so I took their advice and applied, and the second time got in. And from there, that kind of started my first foray into the sports journalism world. And I remember going into that newsroom, 100 TVs in the newsroom, all these famous on-air celebrities that you see on TV you grew up with. So I was a wide-eyed kid who looked around and was just like, man, okay, I've made it. I've seen this show, and I've seen this networks growing up. What else could I ask for? It was a great learning experience. And it's a great human experiment, because there are 20, 30 people in that newsroom watching sports, commenting on sports, writing about sports, and each person has their own passion and ambitions. It was kind of a trial by fire there, but it was an experience I would not trade for anything.
You were at TSN for more than 5 years.
Yeah, just about 5 years. And so during each time, and again, I think if for some of your younger listeners there, just a key takeaway would be just don't give up if you really want to do something. I realized that, look, after my political experience or lack thereof, I realized that I didn't have a secondary plan to fall back on. And while all your self-help books and your parents and everybody will tell you you need something to fall back on, I actually don't agree with that. I think if you have something to fall back on, you're not going to dive headlong in to what you're really passionate about. And if you look at all of successful, ambitious people who've accomplished great things, they don't have a secondary plan because their first, second, and third plan is their first plan. And so there's no safety. So you just got to dive headlong into it and put all your effort, everything you have into what you're passionate about. And you won't fail. You can't fail because there's no other plan. So you're going to scratch, claw, and do everything you can to succeed. And so that's kind of what I learned during school and during the first 5 years of my career. But yeah, I was there 5 years, and about 3 years in, I realized, man, this is it was fun, it was exciting, but I needed a new challenge, and I needed something. I was good at what I was doing, but I wasn't great. And so where my real strengths lie is in relationships, building relationships, and putting creative ideas together and marrying the two. And I realized that at a fairly young age. And when you're in a newsroom, huddled, writing scripts for anchors, it was fun. Great peer group and great friends that I still cherish and have to this day. But I realized there's something else. I started to look at how I can work on the business side of things and potentially marry my journalism skills and work for a public relations, a BPR for an NFL team, a National Football League team. That's kind of what I wanted to do. So from year 3 to year 5, I just did a ton of research and figured out what do I need to do to break into that side of the business. Because look, there are so many talented people out there that want to work in sports because it's a fun, exciting, highly visible place. So I need to differentiate myself. And so I remember sitting in my basement, opening up our national newspaper here, the Toronto Star, front page story about a Canadian who works for the New York Giants, a guy named Kevin Abrams, and about his success and his stories. And within that story, it talked about getting your master's degree in sports administration. And Ohio University came up multiple times. And that article said, look, if you want to break into the sports industry and you want to really be successful and have a great network at your disposal, you go to Ohio University. And so I looked at it, and from that point forward, again, I talked about not having a secondary plan. I only applied to Ohio University. I did all my research. Wow. School for me, and all the research I've done was the best school, and it's to this day, pretty much every year it's voted the world's, not just North America, the world's best sports management program. It's I think if it's not the number one school, it's number two, and it's been that way for 15, 20 years. And so I packed my girlfriend, who's now my wife at the time, into our Toyota Corolla. We drove the 8 hours from Toronto and went in and met our executive director, Jim Kaler, and met with 3 Canadians actually who were in the program that put me through the ringer. And this was even before I even got accepted in. I didn't even apply at this point. I just wanted to go down and confirm everything that I've read. So the tour, and it's cool because they're recruiting you in while you're evaluating them, because they only accept 20, 25 kids each year in, and there's a significant applicant pool. And so I went in and they showed me around, and I just fell in love with the place. It's a small little oasis in southern Ohio, which I fell in love with, and so did my wife. And so we came back, and again, it's a tough place to get in, but again, persistence. I went in and I had a lot of experience at TSN, but that was it. And so I know I needed more experience. So while I was working full time at TSN, I did an internship in the Canadian Football League, which is our professional football, American Football League, and for a team called the Toronto Argos. So I was working there every other day while working full time, and I was doing a few other things to help increase my resume to get in. And I remember applying and getting in, getting that call while I was at TSN. I remember I was drinking a Coke and commenting on writing on a game. I got that call, and it was the best call. Just a culmination of a lot of hard work, and from there it was a game changer. Ohio was just an absolute game changer for me and countless other students who've gone there.
Oh, that's amazing. Some really solid advice for a lot of folks. Appreciate that. Rishi, in Canada, I mean, you're Canadian. Is it everyone's sort of dream who's working in sport who want to work with hockey in Canada? Is it safe to say that?
89% of Canadians say hockey is part of our national fabric. I mean, last time you can get 5 people to agree on what color the sky is, but 89% of Canadians think hockey is part of the national fabric. So I think the answer to your question would be yes. Everybody, at least growing up here, it's ingrained. I mean, Canada is such a diverse country. We have so many new immigrants coming in, and it's Toronto is our largest city. I think 2035, visible minorities are going to surpass non-visible minorities. It's one of the most diverse, beautiful cities in the world. I know you've been once, but to our listeners there, if you're looking for a wonderful city, come visit Toronto. But everybody, for the most part, does. The new immigrants want to assimilate, and they want to come in and they learn hockey. We have Punjabi broadcasts of our hockey night in Canada, and it's part of our culture, whether you're born here or not. And so it's a really wonderful thing that we have. I'm a hockey fan for sure. I also love American football and basketball as well. But yeah, hockey is as ingrained in this culture as anything that we have here.
So, I mean, post your degree at Ohio, did you envision yourself working with the CHL, with the Canadian Hockey League, and how did that sort of journey happen? And then you can sort of tell us a little bit about your role there as well.
For sure. I hope your listeners have some time, because it's going to be a bit of a circuitous journey.
No.
After grad school, again, I wanted to go into PR, but my executive director, when I first got there, was like, "You're not a PR journalism person." I'm like, "Jim, I've done a postgraduate degree, a whole bunch of my whole entrance essay to get in was on PR. So give me 3 months in the program and then come back to me. You're a sponsorship guy." And he could see that. And now looking at it, it was right in front of my nose, but I didn't have the experience to know what sponsorship was, really. I had an idea because we did a lot of sponsorship at TSN, but I had no idea. And so 3 months in, I come slinking into the chair. I'm like, "Jim, you were right. I love sponsorship. Favorite thing to do." And from that point on, I just immersed myself in it, and I can't see myself doing anything else. It's just a great path. You get to flex your social skills, you get to flex your creative skills, your interpersonal, your relationship skills, and again, talking about integrity, they're buying the brand, but they're buying you and that trust with you. Because when I go in, I mean, I work for them. When we're putting partnerships together, my job is to, yes, I work for the league. My job is to work for you and be your biggest advocate, tell you when you're doing things great and tell you when you're doing things wrong. And then they can tell us when our partners are great at telling us when they think we're not doing things great. And so that relationship and that dialogue to me is so important. And that's what I love about it. A lot of times, I mean, going on meetings and lunch meetings, I mean, I'm surprised I get paid to do that, because that's so much fun. I know the aspect of it. It's amazing. And then on top of that, I get to put together creative programs that help reach their business objectives. I mean, that help hit upon their KPIs, and seeing the programs you put together with your partners under the big lights. I mean, what's better than that? But so I fell in love with sponsorship, and I worked at the University of Virginia, which is in Charlottesville, for a year, selling sponsorship there. And then we came back. I always wanted to get into sponsorship sales after school, but I realized I wasn't there quite yet, and I knew I wanted to sell in those big deals. I needed some strategic backing, and I needed some infrastructure of my own to make decisions and to speak the language of the C-suite. And so I took a bit of a step back and worked on the agency side. Had a few sales opportunities with some big organizations, but and again, for your listeners who are stuck or figuring out what to do, what's helped me, and my suggestion would be to take a long-term view of your career. Always take a long-term view. Don't always look at the brand, the name on the front of the shirt, or the prestige of the brand. Look at what skills you need to succeed. Look at some really successful people and how they've taken their careers to another level, and what they've done, because that's going to be a good path for you. Every path is different, but there are some key general takeaways you can take. And when I did that, I'm like, man, a lot of them in career look like they took a step back, but when you look at it, they went 2 or 3 steps forward after that experience because they took a long-term view. And I knew I was lacking in some strategic initiatives, how to put together great programs, and being on the agency side. So we were a sponsorship agency. I think when we started, I was the 60th or 16th employee that they hired, and now we're, I think, well over 100. They've been bought by a big agency, and so it was a great learning ground. And I learned how to become a professional there. I went from being to use a North American metaphor, a AAA baseball player, into the Major League Baseball player, because I learned how to speak. I learned what a good proposal looks like, what a bad proposal looks like, more importantly. I got exposure to the C-level of major corporations in Canada and some of the top sponsorship spenders there. It was such a mismatch for my personality because I was challenged every single day because I was a sponsorship guy and a relationship guy. And this worked on it, flexed a whole new group of muscles and skills that I didn't have or I needed to work on. And so I hated every single minute of my 3 years there. But I will tell you, the stuff I learned there helped me close the largest deal in league history, the CHL. And that's directly from my experience at the agency level. And again, I hated every single minute of it. I went in, was miserable. But looking back on it, those 3 years were the best 3 years of my life in terms of personal development and growth. And so again, for your listeners, if you're looking for some tips and tricks, there's no shortcut to the top, only a shortcut to the middle. And if you want to look for a hack to get to the top, there isn't any. I mean, you have to work, and you got to take a holistic 360-degree view of your career and be honest with yourself and look to fix the gaps. And sometimes you may have to take a lateral move to take 2 or 3 steps forward. And you can jump from a manager to a senior director or even a VP if you're ready. I mean, you can do that, but you got to make sure you have the skill set to do that. Titles are empty if you're not able to fulfill what the role's looking for. But if you can, there are a few people who can make that jump because they've learned and they have that skill set to make it work.
No, that's. I mean, there's just more and more takeaways, which is really awesome. Please keep them coming.
Awesome.
Rishi, the whole digital evolution. I mean, how now? I mean, sponsorship is broken up into so many different fragments, right? Initially, I mean, it was quite easy. Okay, you have broadcast, there's broadcast coverage, but now there's engagement, there's online, the fans are talking during the games. And so it's changed, right, over the years. And obviously you being at the forefront need to be up to speed. But at the same time, I'm guessing you have to educate the brands, you educate the league, and sometimes also try and educate some of the fans. And I mean, tell us a little bit about that journey. It must be really interesting because I know North America is probably one of the most, I would say, organized markets in that sense, but also forward thinking, right? And working with digital is really important.
Yeah, and it's a great observation, and it's gotten much more important with the onset of the pandemic, where a lot of the leagues have we had to cancel our major event and playoffs in 2020, and this past season, one of our leagues, and we have 3 leagues here at the CHL. One of our leagues didn't play because of the pandemic, and the other 2 played but without fans. And the CHL is a gate-driven league, and so over half of our revenue comes from the gate, and so it was crippling for us. But in order to retain our partners and provide value to our partners, we had to pivot hard into digital. And so I'd say 5 years ago, our digital revenue was probably 20-25% of the business. It's going to make up a significantly larger portion of it, not only because that's the way people are experiencing us and experiencing sports and experiencing their entertainment, but people expect us to be there, and so we need to be there, and not only need to just be there because that's table stakes, but come up with programming that can be a competitive differentiator for us and for our partners. And so the amount of programs we've put together over the past 12 months are probably 2x what we've done the previous 10 years. And so that's because we've had to pivot, because when you're not playing, we need to provide value to our partners. And there's a lot of choices out there. And we've been fortunate that our partners have been great. The vast majority of them have stuck with us during some down times, and we're just about to have the start of our season here in October, and now's the time to reward them for their loyalty and reward our new partners as well for sticking with us, because people are dying for connection, are dying put their arm around together or one another at sporting events, and to be on their edge of their seat and be a 45-year-old man or woman on the edge of your seat, having a drink in your hand, getting up and acting like a 10-year-old kid at a sporting event. We're craving that, and sports is going to come back roaring, and it's going to be something to behold, and I can't wait to be a part of it. But yeah, digital is something that isn't just table stakes now. It is something that we're expected to do and expected to be good at, and so we're well on our way. Not there yet, but we'll get there.
No, that's so true. And I think you mentioned the word downtime, and obviously a lot of the brands and corporates and organizations have seen this sort of downtime. But you as a relationship guy, right? At the end of the day, it's so key to have a good relationship with your sponsors, with your brands, because like you said, I mean, when the going's tough, if they stick with you, you know that you've done them right at some particular point of time. And I think sponsorship, as in India, it's slightly different. It's very short term. I mean, there are some sponsors who come in for the long haul, but I know for a fact in North America that they look at it in the long run, and I think that's important because sponsorship is key. You need to be able to develop the sport, the property, as well as the brand. All goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
It's a good observation. To me, to reach the height of the benefits of sponsorship, you need 3 years. The first year, and that's not the first 2 years aren't meaningful, because they're very meaningful. But by that third year, everyone knows the association and you're entrenched with our partnership, and people associate you with the CHL or with the IPL or whatever it is. First year is getting your name out there, associating yourself with your partner. The second year is ingraining it, and by the third year, everybody knows that. And sponsorship is such a unique medium where it's a two-way message, where you can talk to one another, as opposed to straight marketing and TV, where it's just you're consuming their content. There's no way for you to engage. And the beauty of sponsorship is, look, if you're a brand, sports fans are affluent, and so they're a desired demographic. And how to reach them is if you can show that you care about what they care about, which is sports, in a highly passionate environment. They see your brand there. I mean, all of our stats show, I think something like 62% of our fans will support a partner of the CHL over a non-partner. And that shows, look, you care about what they care about. And that's the beauty of sponsorship. It's not cheap. It's if you look at it just from a straight numbers perspective, and you're pinching your pennies, then sponsorship isn't for you. But if you want to have a holistic, real relationship with your fans, sponsorship is the best. And in terms of your other question, in terms of relationships, I mean, when the pandemic hit, everyone said, man, now is going to be the time to see how strong your contracts are. And I'm like, that's ludicrous. To me, what the pandemic is going to show is how strong are your relationships over the contract.
Exactly.
So if you have strong relationships, the contracts are moot. And you can build relationships during a pandemic, but the real relationships happen prior, when things are going well, and when you're there for them and you answer questions and you're frank with them and you're authentic with them. And relationships, people view them as commodities. I just view them as friendships. And in business, the line gets blurred, and it is all about business. But if you can still have, in the sponsorship world anyway, a lot of my partners have become friends, and one of the proudest things for me in my almost 6 years now at the CHL was a good client of ours, just a decent man, retired, and we've built out a program for them over the past 4 years. And I, along with another colleague, were fortunate enough to be invited to his retirement party. It was done virtually, but there with people he worked with for 30 or 40 years, and still to this day, it was heartwarming to be welcomed to that. And it just speaks to our relationship, and it was a wonderful thing to be a part of. And that's beyond sports and beyond whatever transaction we had. That to me was what we're in the industry for, to do great things together, to achieve their business objectives, and then also along the way have a lot of rip roaring fun, and build a relationship that's going to stand the test of time.
Yeah, no, it's so true. Rishi, you've done your masters at Ohio. We have a few, 5 to 7 minutes. Want to talk about sports business education, and primarily, see, right now in the sports business, you've seen it across multiple decades, where the roles, the jobs are getting more specific, and obviously, so are sports programs. But what's your take on sport? I know it's done good for you in terms of changing a perspective and getting you on the right track. But any particular thoughts on sports business and how you see it evolving in the region that you're in?
Yeah, I think you have to do research. As you can tell by my background, I'm a huge proponent of post-secondary education, because it does help separate you. But there are some key things that I learned along the way that I'm glad I did my research, because right now, at least in North America, it looks like there are post-secondary schools popping up every other day. And And it's one thing to say you have your degree, because I mean, that would probably be a separator to a certain degree. But the number one thing is you got to look for how practical is. Like, what are you looking to do? How are you going to define success? What do you want for your career? And then find the school that's going to get that for you. And so for me, the thing I loved about Ohio was its network in the industry. I mean, we have a directory that's this thick of people in our alumni directory that are a who's who of the sports industry, not only North America, globally. And so the test is, when I was going for my pre-interview in Ohio, they gave me the directory and they said, look, reach out to anybody in this book in your email, put the subject Ohio University, and I guarantee within 48 hours, they'll get back to you. I started laughing. I'm like, there's no way. I emailed the gentleman I read my story on, Kevin Abrams, that got me to think about the school at Ohio University. I remember typing it in when I was at TSN. Hey, Jim Kaler told me to reach out, to think about going to school. As a fellow Canadian, can you give me 10 minutes? Within 6 hours, here's my personal cell phone number, call me. He gave me 45 minutes of his time. And that's the power of our school.
Amazing.
The first thing they ask you, the first thing I was asked, even before my executive director said hello, was, what are you going to do when you make it in the industry? What are you going to do to give back to this program and to the kids who are in your position now? And so that's all I needed to hear. I mean, that's what that not only you have the alumni directory, but people are passionate about giving back. And so I'd suggest or recommend that do your research and know what you want, and make sure you have there's practical usage to what your degree is, because the degree is nice. The whatever's on paper was going to differentiate you, but what's going to supercharge your career and help you along the way are help from the alumni, from the network. And it's probably a handful of schools here that do that. I know the FIFA Masters, which is a top 3 program internationally every year, is a great program in North America here. We've got a few in Canada here, in Laurentian University and potentially Brock. And then down south, there's UMass, Central Florida, Oregon, a few others, but those are the ones that are established. So it's one thing to just do it online and get your degree, but know what you want. And if you know what you want, go hard for your school, and don't take no for an answer. And it's gonna help you along the way. It is, to me, it's almost a must-have now if you want to break into the industry at a fairly high level, to have that initially. It just makes those transition years from year 1 to 5 of your career important. And another piece of advice that someone I got from school told me was, look, you stick in the industry for 5 years. They go, after 5 years, the fun happens, the financial rewards happen, and your career starts to take off. And he goes, so many people quit after 5 years because that first 5 years is a rough slog. And I can attest to it. I mean, when I worked at my agency job, those 3 years, I was miserable. But literally almost to the day when 5 years came, I pivoted to the CHL, and the joy factor went up. The financial rewards came in literally after 5 years. So if you can tough it out for those first 5 years, it's like having a baby. Those first 12 months are but the rewards are a lifetime of joy and fun. But those first 12 months are atrocious. But you can get through those, the rewards come. And in the sports industry, if you can get through 5 years, that's when the rewards come. So all you young students out there, after 5 years, you stick it out, that's when the fun's going to happen.
Awesome. No, that's superb advice. Thank you so much, Rishi. I know we can talk about sports
as long as we want.
Yeah, I could talk your ear off, and that's not good for anybody. So now's a good time to probably end it, or we can talk until dinner time.
No, I was just going to say no. Thank you so much. Maybe a last question for our audience. I noticed you are also a mentor, right? And I think that you're part of a mentorship program. Just maybe a little thoughts on how mentorship is important. I mean, as a young professional, or even for people who are sort of in the middle of their career.
Yeah, I mean, I had a few mentors, but nothing that was earth shattering. I mean, there was a few that helped guide me along the way, but I wish I always had a few mentors or people on my board of directors that I could reach out to. So I think one-on-one mentorship is key, and to me, giving back to an industry that's given me so much is an absolute minimum I can do. And so if anybody reaches out to me at a minimum on LinkedIn or whatever, I will respond back because it's kind of the right thing to do. And if someone reaches out, you give them that time. Where the frustrating part is if people reach out and they don't have a plan, or they don't know what they're looking for. That's one thing. But if you're part of a mentorship program, the people who enter usually do have a plan. And I know our connection happened through a mentorship connection, and Amy's been unbelievable in terms of being prepared and knowing what he wants to do and ask. So he's been great. But to me, if you're in this industry, I mean, we're so lucky, A, to be in the industry, but B, our job is to help groom and the next generation of talent. That's kind of our job here. So it's something I always want to do, and even when I'm a creaky old man at 75, I still want to do what I can to help develop and help grow and just provide any insights I can to them. And most people in this industry are open to it. A lot of people are working so hard, they don't have time to do it. But to me, it's something you make time for, because selfishly, I mean, I get a lot out of it. I learned so much from these guys and girls. It's wonderful to hear their new takes and their challenges to me on my ways of thinking. So it's so rewarding in so many ways that I think everybody should at least do their part to give back.
Awesome. Rishi, really appreciate you taking the time out. It's been some really good pockets of takeaways and advice for all our listeners. Thank you again.
Roop, appreciate you. I appreciate the time, and all the best to you and Kite Talks in the future.